gentlemen, I'd like to point out to you that Massachusetts will become an acronym, and I'll finish up when I finish up. I'll explain why. Violent crime across the United States. His conclusion that these shall issue laws which allow citizens to carry concealed weapons steadily decrease violent crime. He explains that the result makes sense because criminals are deterred by the risk of attacking an armed victim. As more citizens arm themselves, the danger to criminals increase. I had a memory stick with the laws in an interactive map from 1986 to 2007. Okay, the state went from red, where you had to get a license, to shall issue, where if you and this is something that we should have here, where if you're a law-abiding citizen, they have to issue the license to carry. And then now there are 4 states, including Vermont, which is to the north of us, nearby, that you don't have to have any. And Arizona was the recent one. And each time the Brady Center, the VPC, Mr. Sugarman, and the office say crime will go up. Crime has gone down in each of these states as a result of law-abiding citizens being able to legally purchase a handgun. Now, this is an unrelated thing. I've had a Corey check for everything I've had to do, including perform this public service of training citizens on responsible gun ownership. Okay? And so I feel, as opposed to some of your colleagues, that my record's clean. I don't have any offenses, criminal offenses against me. I'm sorry to have to say that, but it's relative to my vehemence in this. Training requirements, law determines the effects of training requirements on the crime rate and the accident rate. It finds that training requirements have very little effect on both crime rates and accident rates. That's because he went and did a statistical study. Waiting periods, relative to HO 2916 and SO 1195. The effects of waiting periods, including limiting the time to purchase a gun, limiting time for obtaining concealed carry, according to the FBI, had no major impact. The Brady law, okay, relative to HO 296 by Representative Linsky. HCI, Handgun Control International, is the chief supporter of the Brady Violence Prevention Act, known as the Brady Bill, enacted in 1993 after a 7-year debate, successfully lobbying for passage of the first ever federal assault weapons ban, banning manufacture and importation of so-called military-style assault weapons. A provision that critics call arbitrary and symbolic. The ban expired in 2004, except in expiration of the ban. The AWB expired in 2004, but was picked up as soon as it expired federally in Massachusetts. And this is relative to HO 296 and HO 639. Opponents of the ban claimed that its expiration has seen little, if any, difference in crime, while Senator Feinstein claimed the ban was effective because it was drying up the supply and driving up the prices of firearms. There's a quotation on that. And this is what this legislation will do for law-abiding citizens. The number of those guns used in crimes dropped because they were less, that's what Feinstein said, because they were less available. The Bureau, the ATF, stated it can no way vouch for the validity of the Brady campaign's claim, and that the ban, and that their claim the ban was responsible for violent crimes decline. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention studied the assault weapon ban and other gun control schemes and found insufficient evidence to determine the effectiveness of any firearms laws reviewed for preventing violence. How does this apply to me? I'm also participating in the Civilian Marksmanship Program, federally sanctioned firearm safety program by the United States of America. United States of America. I have to emphasize, gentlemen. Okay, this program is conducted by gun clubs in this state, federally mandated, sanctioned, and sanctioned firearm safety program that uses military-style looking semi-automatic rifles, or as people in the left ideologue, assault weapons. Okay, why do they do this? Well, they didn't like it, they didn't want civilians to be trained. Originally it was so that, should we be called, civilians be called more like in World War II, where my grandfather at 50 was on in the draft, was registered for the draft, because they didn't know how long the war would go on. If we run into any dire straits, that citizens would know how to use arms. Because the founders in the state, in the state's constitution said, Citizens shall not be disbarred from the use of firearms. Okay? Reason that people that have the virtue and the character to be a good citizen could use them in the state of emergency to protect the vestiges in the communities. And the last thing, like, well, one of the last things, in other countries.
I'm going to ask you to start summarizing
Okay.
in respect to the other people that want to testify here today.
What I'd like to say is, handgun in England, which the HCI likes to use, handgun crimes rose 40% in England after guns were banned. The Center for Defense Studies at King's College in London, which carried out the research, said this number of crimes which the handgun were reported, where handgun was reported in the crime, increased from 2,648 in 1997-98 to 3,685 in 1999. 2000, this is from the BBC News Service website. To conclude, John, the ideology behind a lot of this legislation will affect the law-abiding citizens such as myself, who in good faith and in good character tries to be a good citizen, but will not affect those who through nefarious means will want to obtain a firearm. Okay, what I do in my class, Mr. Chairman, last night, when I do my safety classes, I take a firearm out, I put it on the table, unload it, I unload it, make it safe. At the end of the class, I asked them this question: did this inanimate object go out and commit a crime? Did it create a robbery? Did it kill anybody? No. You have to consider individual usage, not inanimate object when you consider legislation with firearms. Thank you very much.